I have a statement that I would like to make today. If you know you wouldn't allow anything in your house, why do you think God is going to allow anything in his house? See, if you know you have rules to your house, don't you think that God has rules to his house? I want you to think about it now. See, right now, you know you wouldn't allow anything, and you have every right to not allow anything up in your house. And see, if somebody wants to live in your house, you're going to tell them it's certain rules that you have to abide by if you want to live in my house. See, your rules can be you can't leave the house after 10, or everybody got to be in the house by 10. If you want all the TVs off in your house by 8, guess what? All the TVs have to be off in your house by 8. If you say that you don't want to allow no smoking or drinking in your house, well, guess what? No smoking or drinking will be allowed in your house. If you don't want to allow no loud music outside of your house, you got every right to say no loud music is going to be allowed outside of your house. You have every right to come down with the rules that you want in your house. And if somebody wants to live with you in your house, they have to abide by the rules of your house. Point blank. It's no getting around it. If you want certain stuff to be on your house on the TV, guess what? People can only watch certain stuff in your house on the TV. You have every right to make the rules of your house because that's your house. Now I want you to think about God's house, because God has the most holy house. And see, if we know that we won't allow anything in our house, why in the world do we think a holy God is going to allow anything in his house and he got the most holy house? See, I want you to think about it now. See, when everybody died, they want to live with God. They raise their hand and say, I want to go to heaven and I want to live with God. But are you willing to do the things that it takes to live with God? See, are you somebody who, when you die, you say you want to live with God, but on this earth, you don't want to live for God? See, do you still want to talk the same, walk the same, dress the same, live the same? But when you leave here, you want to live with God. Right now is the day. While you have a breath in your body, it's time for some of us to figure out what it's going to take to live in God's house. See, God said he will not allow no anything in his house. So while you got the breath in your body, it's time to clean up your act and say, I have to get my life together if I want to live in my Father's house. Because see, if you know you want to allow that foul talking in your house, why in the world do you think God is going to allow that foul talking to his house? Why do you think that God is going to allow smoking and drinking and gambling at his house and you won't allow it at your house? You won't allow the disrespect in your house. So why in the world do you think God is going to allow the disrespect in his house? Today is the day. And it's time to start getting our life together if we want to live in God's house. And God has standards for his house. The job has standards. The school has standards and the church has standards. So how in the world does everybody have standards and we think a holy God don't have standards and he has the most holy standards? So today is the day. It's time to seek God so you can get to know God and you can know the standards of God. See, you can't live on this temporary world, walk, talk, and live for the devil's kingdom, but then you think when you die, you're going to be greeted by God and his kingdom. It does not work that way. It will not work that way, and it cannot work that way. Right now, you must know what will it take to live with God's kingdom. And if we know that we won't allow foolishness, why in the world do we think God is going to allow foolishness to go down in his house? Why do we think that God is going to allow fighting to go down in his house? God is not going to allow that type of stuff. And even if you do allow certain stuff in your house, God is just not going to allow it in his house because God said, I have the most holy house. So let's start seeking God. Right now, while you got the breath in your body, get to know God. Have a relationship with God. Have a relationship with God like you would get to know one of your friends. Have a relationship with God like you would get to know your significant other. You have to know God because a lot of times we make God out to be this fictitious God because we don't know God. We make God okay with everything we do under the sun, and that was me. I made God okay with everything I was doing, and you know why? Because I was lazy and I did not know God because I didn't have a true relationship with God. But when I finally start being lazy, when I stopped being lazy and I started seeking God, I realized that guess what? I couldn't live any kind of way before God because when my eyes close, I know that I want to live with God. So right now, the Heavenly Father is telling a lot of us, if you want to live with me, you better start living for me. Right now, if you want to live with God, it's time for some of us to start living for God. And we got to let some things go if we want to live for God. We cannot talk the same. We cannot walk the same. We cannot dress the same. And we cannot live the same. It's got to be something different if you want to live in God's house. So right now, go to God. Seek God so you can have a true relationship with God, and you can know when your eyes closed, you will be living with the true and living God. So I always remember my closing. Self-examination is the best examination, and Jesus Christ is Lord, and he's all we have. Have a great rest of the day.